know that's fine.
No.
You're here. I'm here for you. Here to support you. See? Gotta stay positive. I lost.
Okay, cool. Okay, now it looks like we're all live on YouTube, so. I will call to order this meeting of the Legislative Committee for May 10th, 2024. President Hoy.
Nishioka?
Nordike.
Thank you, Counselor, for joining us remotely. All right, we'll just get right into it. Updates and information sharing. We're going to go to our federal folks first. Mark and Terry from Summit Strategies, and Kat is here with us as well.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. Excuse me. Good to see you all. It is it's been interesting back here in DC. There's been a lot of churn, kind of a lot of stuff happening primarily around the appropriations process. They finished the FY24 budget not that long ago, just a few weeks ago, kind of at the tail end of March, and then have just barreled straight on into the FY25 process as well. Just a mere, what are we, 6 months late. In terms of starting that. This has led to a lot of kind of confusion and a lot of problems with some offices in terms of trying to process appropriations requests and individual member office requests, particularly on the House side. The House basically announced their guidance on the FY25 process and their subcommittee deadlines for the FY25 process a couple weeks ago, and gave roughly like a week for offices to turn around projects after getting the guidance. And some offices, like fortunately our Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, had set a deadline and started their process kind of based around the FY24 guidance quite a bit earlier, and left, and so therefore they received their request a lot earlier, so the chance to process things so they could kind of meet this tight timeline a bit easier. Some offices had not set their deadlines by that point, so we're in the process of trying to collect projects and vet them and see if they fit in with this brand new guidance from the new chairman of the committee, Congressman Cole from Oklahoma. So the city's projects have been in for a while now, thanks to Courtney and team there in Salem. I've touched base with Ben from Salinas' office since that had happened, and their deadline for submitting to the committee is today. I touched base with Ben at the beginning of this week, Courtney, and asked if he needed any more information, if he had any questions about anything. He said he had everything he needed from the city. I tried to get a little bit of a sense whether they were going to be submitting or not on some of our projects, but I feel like he said he has everything he needs. He was very responsive. So I feel like we've done the work, and we've given them kind of what they need in terms of the FY25 requests on the House side. The Senate, we're still kind of waiting on kind of what their next steps are, right, Terry? They don't have committee deadlines on those.
Correct. I don't believe that they have committee deadlines. However, we would expect that they will be coming up within the next month at best. So I think that in the next couple of weeks, we'll be going through the same process of having to confirm our projects with the senator's offices. And we'll certainly be taking care of that and touching base with them to make sure that they have everything they need.
That's been kind of the big thing back here in DC. There have been some other large bills that have been moving along, which might have some interest, at least to the city. The FAA authorization is kind of the big one that's moving right now. This was a bipartisan bill in the House, as divided as the House has been last year. The House Transportation Committee passed their version of the FAA authorization bill unanimously, and it passed on the floor last year of the House with something like 60 no votes against it. So very bipartisan. They have been negotiating in the last few months with the Senate, which passed a bill earlier this year out of committee, but did not actually bring it to the floor. And they've been kind of pre-conferencing/conferencing that legislation right now. The Senate passed their version of the bill last night. There was agreement from the House on all the changes or provisions that the Senate made to that version of the bill, and the House is expected to go early next week on passing that bill. They included a 7-day extension into the FAA as well, because that was going to expire today, right? So included a 7-day extension on that in both those extensions. The House should be passing there soon. It's, I would say, in terms of interest to Salem and the Salem Airport, it's more just the consistency of having long-term funding for the FAA that is going to matter really the most. There are some different policy provisions in there and some different changes, but most of the big stuff that's in there, like increased number of slots at National Airport and, you know, pilot age and things of that nature that they're kind of getting at, or that they were discussing and doing, there aren't really direct impacts on the Salem Airport, but long-term consistent funding for FAA being locked in is, I would say, really kind of the big thing in terms of the city on that piece of legislation.
There are some places where they tweaked formula funds and the way that they're distributed. It's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to know what the impact is unless you are very deep in the numbers. We can provide some of those details to your airport manager, and they may be able to work the numbers backwards and figure out the exact impact on your airport. However, it's our expectation that it should be a small bump in the right direction up. So it shouldn't hurt, but it's also doesn't appear that it's a major difference in funding either.
Thank you for that context.
So I'm just gonna take a quick minute, Mark, to help the committee translate those 3 priorities that we've submitted for appropriations.
Yes, please.
So I'm not sure, it's been a while, so I'm just gonna overstate. If you were looking at the grant table that you received early, you would see at the bottom of the first page, you can see the CVRI. It's called Reducing Community Violence Through Trust Building and Smart Policing. That is our ask, $702,000 to support that. That's our primary ask, both at the House and the Senate side. So that is our first appropriations request. We did, to Mark's point, we submitted everything early to Congresswoman Salinas and did get a couple of follow-up questions easily answered earlier than the deadline, which was Wednesday at 10 a.m. or something like that. So we took care of that really early this week. Everything's fine.
Courtney, can I pause you on that
Please.
before you go to the next one? And I have a question for Mark and Terry and Kat. Do you think that this ask will be impacted by the president's new initiative with his gun violence reduction office within the White House? Will that impact us at all, or are those just completely separate, no relation?
Completely separate, in my opinion.
Okay. Thanks.
And potentially more opportunity.
Yeah, okay.
So just to be abundantly clear, these are existing grant resources line items in the federal budget, and we are asking for Congress, our delegation, to support these initiatives through their appropriation. So it's like, it's going through the same grant rules, but it's with their support. Does that make sense? Sort of, I'm being vague. So then if you turn over the page, you can see our second priority is the terminal expansion, and this is the second phase of that work. We were successful when the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development budget passed for fiscal year 24 at the federal level. We did get 802, I think that's right. 850, sorry, from Congresswoman Salinas. The check presentation occurred last week, or it was on the 22nd of April, I think. So that's good news. This is a new request to further that work. It's an incremental project we can continue to advance. The third priority we submitted was the Boardwalks for Beavers project. And this is, again, just trying to let the beavers have the natural area and enjoy it, and then also create some kind of a walkway that pedestrian and bicycle pathway that allows for year-round access of that critical connection between the first parking lot at Minto and the bridge connection, Peter Courtney Bridge connection. So that is always inundated by water, almost always. And so it would be a way that we could take that out of the waterway and allow for more park users to enjoy that transportation route, bicycle transportation route. So those are the 3 priorities we've submitted. Again, to Mark's point, we've gotten all of the follow-up questions answered early, so that they can best represent our project priorities. So thank you.
Yeah, and
Anything
also
else
say
for
too on
folks?
the,
Sorry, go ahead, Terry.
oh, I was gonna say, I'll also say on there, the new guidance from the committee when they did come out, because they did make some rather major changes, which did throw a major wrench into others of our clients' projects that were out there and led to a lot of work over the last couple of weekends on our part. The Salem's projects, fortunately, those changes in guidance don't affect anything that you all were going for, or any don't pose any issues there. So it was all of our kind of work up front that Courtney mentioned meant that we were in good shape. They kind of had what they needed, so that meant that they could focus on these other projects that were impacted by new Chairman Cole.
Thank you. Anything else for our federal folks?
I was just going to add one update on your RAISE grant application for the Front Street development. So
Yes.
the delegation has officially signed collectively and sent a letter of support for your application to the secretary. And Mark and I were just in a meeting with DOT the other day, and they let us know that awards are expected to be announced end of June. So there's an
Fantastic.
update on that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kat. Good call.
Now for Mark and Kat, I don't want to make you know this, but I know you're both from here, so you will appreciate the fact that it's an 80-degree May day in Salem. And it couldn't be more beautiful today. It's like perfect weather. So
That's
Indeed.
amazing. It's like 60 and cold and gray here, so we swapped weather.
It is gray and rainy here. It is a
Very Oregon here
very
today.
typical Oregon May day.
Well, you should be here for sure, because it's like, it's an amazing few days here in Salem, for sure.
Awesome.
I hope you
All
all
right.
get outside this weekend.
For sure. All right, well, now we are up to Justin at Perseverance for the state issues.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, federal team, good to see everybody. I will be brief because people have to be in certain places. We all want to go outside. All right, so today I'll focus real quickly on our legislative report. I will talk a little bit about our legislative calendar. I will let everybody know what I've been up to in terms of past meetings and some that I have upcoming. And then finally talk a little bit about this interim and how we're going to get out there and work on our education and our advocacy. So with that, I've got this legislative report here. I don't know if that's in everybody's inbox, Courtney, or if that's good. So everybody's got that. I don't need to go through that much. But again,
it's in your email in preparation for this meeting, and it will be advanced to council for the May 28th meeting, assuming there are no changes that anyone on the committee wants to make.
Okay.
and the nice thing about that, Mr. Mayor and council, you can go through that at your leisure. Remember, this is a twofold document. One, it's to take a snapshot of the past and where we were in the last legislative session. It's also then what we use as kind of a framework or a guide going forward. So we have that information, relevant information about what we were pushing last time, how that plays in the next session. So there's links in there. You can see where the mayor's provided testimony, where the city has been in support or in opposition, and we've got all that as a baseline. So please utilize that report as a living document. With that, the legislative calendar, not much there. Obviously, we've got a huge primary. All elections are always huge, and we always have the, from the lobby side, the utmost respect for people that actually put their name on a ballot and put themselves out there in elections. So we appreciate that. Moving forward, we do have interim legislative committee days in late May after the holiday. Then we have the September legislative days in which we get opportunities to talk to legislators. We have the December 10th and 11th interim legislative committee days, kind of finalizing what's coming out of drafting, what's coming out of LC. There are some deadlines around there. And then January of 2025, there will be interim committee days that really signal kind of the start to the February legislative session. As everybody knows, we've got a full session coming up, so 160 days to get things done. That being said, you don't really get it done in that compressed timeframe, as everybody knows, we really want to get it done. So when I talk about the interim and that kind of work, it's really important how we focus on that. And again, you can see what your team has done on the federal side and the state side and looking at our objectives. I think we've got a really good roadmap and a really good framework to work from. With that, I have met with almost all of legislative leadership. The only one I haven't met with yet is the Senate President Wagner, but I have met with our new majority leader, Ben Bowman, went up and spent a little time in his district, so that's exciting. And we talked about Salem issues. So they are all aware of what we are trying to accomplish with State Street, what we are trying to accomplish with a capital city payment in lieu of taxes, and the feedback from both the majority leader in the House, the majority leader, Kate Lieber, in the Senate, the new speaker, Julie Fahey, who's served with the mayor here. They're all very aware of the need that we have in Salem. I'm going to keep reinforcing that. We're going to keep talking about that, especially since we don't have Senate President Courtney anymore. But again, Senator Wagner has been very willing to listen to us on that. Next Friday, I have 9 hours with the governor with another client. So there will be plenty of time to inject some Salem's needs and priorities with her as well, and her staff, as we do this 9-hour tour of the Grand Run Reservation. So we will take advantage of that opportunity next week. Interim, as everybody knows, in 2020, when the world shut down during a pandemic, it's very hard to get out and do kind of retail lobbying, right? In 2022, same deal. So a person like myself who's been around a long time, I guess with experience, really needs that relationship time, needs that opportunity to build those relationships and continue that, not just with members, but with their staff in and around their districts. So I haven't had that opportunity in 20 and 22. We will have that opportunity in 24. So as I'm out doing essentially a goodwill tour, meeting with elected officials, getting out to their neck of the woods, again, our priorities are going to be front and center with them. And I mentioned those earlier, State Street. We've got payment in lieu of taxes, and we've got funding. We know we're coming up against some deadlines, and we're coming up to some areas where we're running out of funding in terms of homelessness, sheltering, et cetera. And again, we have to get as many dollars as we can into our coffers next session. So with that, that is my update, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Justin?
9 hours.
Yeah, it's from 10 to 7.
That's
Nice.
Yeah.
Must include a couple meals.
Yeah, there's meals and touring like every facility, and so there'll be a ample opportunity.
Great. All right. Courtney, I think we're on to you for our updates to legislative agenda.
I have 2 things I want to make sure I mention right away. I think there are 2. The first one is that there's a road show around transportation that's occurring. It's going everywhere but Salem. It will be close to Salem, and it will be in the
I missed the topic of the
road show. It's ongoing maintenance needs. So this is all part of, Oregon Department of Transportation has recognized that their funding for maintenance and operations is dwindling as we're changing our habits and there's less gas tax available. And so how can they, they're trying, the roadshow is about really getting a handle on where the needs might be in local communities, because a portion of the gas tax is shared out at cities. And so trying to get a better understanding of what's missing, what wouldn't get funded, and understanding what options might be for how to advance a funding change. This is all part of what we understand to be next session focused on transportation. What we're hearing in different places is that it's unlikely to be sort of a big push for big projects, but more a push for how to change the funding formula so that there's more dollars available for operations and maintenance. So, so there's a road show, and again, it's not coming to Salem. And so the question is whether any of you might wish to join one of the opportunities to talk about Salem's needs and interests that might be occurring in a nearby or adjacent community. Things like Albany or Eugene, those are the closest probably. That's early. in Albany is July 16, Eugene is July 17. I can share out the dates. But the question is whether someone from the committee might want to participate.
Justin, what's your advice?
I don't know, town halls and roadshows are tricky for me. One, I think elected officials really want to hear from their constituents, not so much professionals in that setting. So I'm always respectful of their time, so we as advocates and professional lobbyists avoid town halls.
Right.
Let that really be a time for their constituents. As you know, the legislature has to get out there, do these things, check their boxes, make sure that the public is being heard. So I'm a little torn, Mr. Mayor, on that. Again, I think there's opportunities, and I'd welcome to hear from Mark and Terry and Kat. I think there's opportunities to influence that committee and get them information ahead of time, coinciding with those meetings. I just don't know about, the 2-minute testimony in front of a bunch of lay people, right? So.
We know and understand as staff that these issues are important to the mayor and to council. And so that's why we're bringing this opportunity forward. We could prepare any kind of background documents or information that you might wish to have. So think about if you want to spend your time that way, and maybe what I'll do after this meeting is just share out those dates that might be closest to Salem, and then you can decide.
Great.
We just know that this is a part of our legislative agenda. And so this is an opportunity, and again, maybe good, maybe not, but.
Great. It would be helpful to have talking points for this topic. So if community members ask, we can help them understand how this might be helpful to Salem.
Yes.
So yeah, so we could arm them with that kind of information to help advocate if they choose to do so.
Can do.
So if you could give us some talking points, that would be awesome.
Good. We can do that.
Thank you.
And then I'm sure some staff may wish to update everyone on what they're doing in this interim and all of the work that, because every one of these people is an expert in their field, and they're being tapped for rulemaking and different kinds of things. So we can have that, and then we could go to the policy statements. I'm less worried about the policy statements because we have more time.
Lesson story.
But I feel like maybe anything that you guys want to share about the rulemaking.
Let's go down the line. Start with this.
It's for Jessica. She's on the. I'm participating on the Rulemaking Advisory Committee for the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis, as well as the Needs and Production Advisory Committee, which is the one that's kind of feeding more of that ground level information up to the higher Rulemaking Advisory Committee. And so we're right now in weekly meetings, kind of vetting through some of the projected guidance that might be coming out from DLCD that will be provided to cities on how the housing needs strategy should be implemented. And so really just keeping in line with our priorities and local control, sharing feedback this week in particular with regards to how we want their guidance to come down. Do we want it to have flexibilities, or do we want them to tell us what type of housing, what type of characteristics, and where we want it to be? And so the feedback that I was providing was like, I like the removal of the musts unless they're the required musts, and we like the mays and the can and the guidance and all of those things, but just really advocating on the space of cities that have already been doing a lot of work in this space that we want, and a lot of outreach to our local community too. And we would hate to undo some of that work that we've already done. And we would like to see some of those flexibilities come to cities like Salem. And we understand that some of the more rural communities might need more guidance, but that we would like the more flexible options in that. So really providing feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's important for them to remember that one size does not fit all, and that we are not all starting from the same place. And so don't assume that we are, and don't make your rules such that we all have to get to the same place, because it's actually gonna do harm for some of us who have been out there working, doing more forward work. So that's really critical. Please let me know if there's anything we can do to help advocate for that. Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything, Kevin?
Not necessarily. I think on the public safety side, we're usually reactionary to whatever the hot topic is that pops up in legislation. Where we actually lucked out was with the modifications to ballot measure 110, House Bill 4002, kicked out $20 million to the state to start deflection programs. But here in Marion County, we've been engaged in that work for over 7 years. So yesterday there was a state symposium on how to set up deflection programs, of which Marion County in the lead was kind of the showcase and is held up as best practices. I participated in that. And so luckily we are ahead of that game. We don't have to create any kind of program. We partner very well with Marion County on that already. So that was actually a breath of fresh air. We weren't sitting in the audience going, oh gosh, how are we going to implement this? Instead, it's how are we going to add to ours? Marion County is going to receive $1.3 million for enhancement on that. So probably it'll be at that level of council to see if there's an influence in there for what that's going to take, what's going to take place with their.
Yeah, have they made it, will any of that work occur in the city?
That will occur in the city.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
We might have varying levels of understanding about what you're meaning. Would you mind explaining a little bit about law enforcement and assisted diversion? Just
So as part of House Bill, so previous to ballot measure 110, Marion County, along with Salem Police Department, we were looking at deflection programs as a way to assist people both experiencing addiction and homelessness. And so in that, if there was a low level, usually a drug offense that took place, officers could ask the person if they would like to enroll in the LEAD program, so law enforcement assisted diversion, and get connected with a Marion County navigator in lieu of an arrest for that particular incident. This is also run through Marion County District Attorney's Office. Once they've completed an assessment and joined LEAD, they're always in LEAD, and they're assigned basically a case manager, for lack of a better term, but really a street case manager. So someone with lived experience that then kind of helps that person through whatever their particular issues are, if that's addiction, if that's mental health, if that's housing needs, if it's education, any of those things. So it's a one-stop shop for all of those issues. It's been very successful. We've had in people that are actively engaged in the program, a 66% reduction after 6 months in police contact, and a 60% recidivism reduction in recidivism for any arrest. So we've found this to be a very successful program.
But this new program isn't going to involve the DA's offices. It'll be
similar to this. It's still pre-book, but they're engaged in that because most of the people have a history leading up to the moment in time where they're deflected for the one particular case. And then usually there's a short period of time afterwards where they may have something else. The DA's office is engaged with the program and has a DA that's assigned to the work group, but they're not leading it, so to speak. It lives within the sheriff's.
But there aren't pending charges or anything associated with this deflection, right? As I understand it.
They'll pen for Marion County specific program. They pen the one charge that is the gateway into the program, and then after that, the accountability is held both previous crimes and post crimes from the moment that they go into the program. So there's still a very good accountability piece. What's nice about ours being housed in the sheriff's office is that then they also, it creates a smoother pathway for community corrections and all the programs that are accessed through that. So it's a really robust and holistic program, really, and we're lucky to we already have that. So I think the interesting part of the conversations moving forward is I think they're utilizing $750,000 of general fund for Marion County. Obviously, that'll be enhanced with the 1.3 million, but if there's any points in there where we can help enhance our ability to utilize the program. But right now it's a perfect partnership, no issues.
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Apologize for the nothing from legal department. Most of our work is supporting the work of others. So
You're
Okay.
not seeing anything on public records or anything?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Josh?
Nothing from finance, lots of little conversations going on.
LCRFP.
The LSC RFP was issued and they did select a vendor for the larger effort on property tax reform. So that is moving forward.
So the LOC is bringing data to the conversation next session.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Good.
I will say it is a longer term effort.
Yeah.
So it's not something where it's 1, 2, 3 years. It's going to be 5, 10, 15 meters. Right.
It's still up also.
I would say.
Yes.
Okay, Courtney,
So what you have before you in the policy statements have a couple of changes, not big ones, but this is where I like to take a moment, a pause, if we have time, and reflect on the last session and whether there were any things that you experienced or learned while we were in it that you might want to characterize now as adjustments, and I can show you where the adjustments.
I would suggest that we take this document, and I think it's really clear your edits. Thank you for the red line version. And I would like people just to go back and kind of ponder your questions, ponder the updates, and think are there, and really, I want to take a more substantive look at this and see are there any adjustments that we want to make going forward? We've got time, but let's take a little bit to read this document, not here in this meeting, but where we actually consider, okay, is this meeting our needs? Is there another area we want to go? Is there areas we want to not go? Let's really take a look at this. And at our next meeting, let's spend some substantive time actually going into what people are thinking, rather
Yes,
than trying to do it on the fly.
that's great. Can I just speak to the two changes that you'll note? There's one change that is on the Salem Municipal Airport, and that's the second page. What you'll see there is that we're queuing up master planning work that will include the ODA facility. We have been asked to support Oregon Department of Aviation in this quest for master planning dollars, and I just wanted to put that forward so that everyone could see that we've been asked, and that might be something that we would do in the coming session.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a kind of a follow-up to a conversation that we had with Rep. Anderson and Rep. Mannix to try to end with the aviation to try to figure out what way we can work together with some support from state funds. So.
And then there's another thing that I want to make sure you see on the following page. It's page 3, and it has to do with transportation funding. We've already talked a little bit about that today, but I just wanted you to know that we are trying also to recognize that we're going to need some diversification of that funding source to be able to advance it. So the places that, just for your awareness, I'm also hearing about is we're looking at an opportunity for a federal grant around Fisher Road Park. Should the source become available again in this coming year, that's one that we think is well positioned. We're having ideas or conversations about whether we want to put forth anything around the North Santiam sewer work. And then we're also curious about water and wastewater projects to support housing production. So those are some of the things that staff are kicking around. And I'm sure you all might have some other ideas that you've come in contact with, and that perfect idea just to come back together in June and talk about that.
I want to check in with Mark. I see that he just turned his camera on and has come off mute.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Courtney, which federal grant program were you looking for Fisher Road Park?
I have a note here that I will endeavor to find while we pause.
Okay, we can follow up offline as well. I was wondering, because I was just in with some folks who talking about some grant programs, so.
Land and Water Conservation Fund Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program.
Okay.
That's one that we're considering.
That sounds like a federal program.
That's the acronym.
Yeah, those.
Absolutely,
Nice simple
no.
name.
I think we would have flagged that one as well, but no, I'm making a note of it, and we'll make sure we are definitely looking for that one coming down the pipe.
Whatever it is, doesn't have enough vowels to sound like a word, but that's one that we're thinking about.
Excellent.
I'll make a good acronym.
All right.
Anyway, so if you could just, Justin was listing the things that we're gonna be positioning for next session, pilot, the sheltering funding, some airport expansion, and the master plan idea, but a shorter list is better.
Yes.
It is a longer session, so there's a little more opportunity, but if you all could open your ears, minds, and then when we reconvene in June, we can have a conversation about how we want to influence the overall program again.
Perfect. Everybody got the marching orders? Come back with a substantive look at this? Yeah.
Question. So Justin, are you also at the state level looking at how the state might be analyzing gas tax? Because I thought they were also doing that, not just at the federal level.
Yeah, it is a state issue.
Okay, because I didn't hear that specifically in the conversation, but that is.
Last time it was warm, we had a lovely meeting with ODOT about, and they were flagging already
Yeah.
their concern and
Because I read about that. I think that's what.
and we share their concern. Josh, do you want to address the status of the transportation fund right now?
So you're all aware of issues in the general fund for transportation, which usually has pretty similar issues with the pending fiscal cliff, insolvency, whatever you want to call it. When our deferred needs are continuing to grow. So we're really looking for additional operational funding there. It's been on the radar for several years. Back in 2018, the first revenue task force recommended a gas tax, a local gas tax to help supplement that funding, and it was always going to come after the general fund revenue problem was solved, and we haven't got there yet. So it's on our radar.
We haven't solved it.
And then I would just say, we are looking at other mechanisms, so similar to the state, whatever the new version is, whether it's strip miles or something else. We're really hoping to look towards something like that to make it more fair and equitable than just a gas tax.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah.
So I'm guessing that through the rest of the budget cycle and whatnot, are we gonna get that deferred maintenance update to council through that process? I'm just wondering if we're gonna know, you know, what we're coming to the table with, what are the needs in St. Louis?
Yeah, at the very latest, we need to have an update at the forecast meeting in January. I know the Public Works is busy working on that kind of deferred list and what the right size of funding would be to maintain
Yeah.
the services going forward, which is where we need to be. We can't keep falling behind.
And we can get you some talking points about the issue generally earlier, for
Perfect.
sure.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I know that, again, to your point, Josh, we've known about this for a while. And I know that Julie will have something that I can get.
Okay.
Excellent.
Do we have anything on this? Or we already covered the status of federal grant?
Yes, that's an attachment. It was in the material you received yesterday.
All right. Does anybody have anything else?